Hi guys, welcome back to Yerdon's Kitchen. Today we're going to do cinnamon rolls. But it's going to be a little different because as you can tell, there's a little celebration going on here. So I'll let you guess on whose birthday it is. Until then, let's get started. Okay guys, so here we go. We're going to get started now. Before I do start, I do want to take a little bit of the chill out of my stainless steel bowl. So I'm just going to run it under the hot water with the outside of the bowl, and that'll get us started. Okay, so here we go. Now to do this, I need a half a cup of warm water. Half a cup is 4 ounces. And remember to check from the side, because if it's too much, it won't work. Right? Remember, baking's a science. So we've come back to the bake shop, and baking's a science. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my warm water. Right? Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of yeast. Remember, the yeast is a living organism. I'm going to give it a little bath and start to wake it up. To that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of sugar. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wake it up. I'm going to feed it a little bit of breakfast. Here's my mise en place. I've got my yeast, I've got my sugar, I've got my flour, I've got my salt, I've got my cinnamon, and I've got my brown sugar. I'm just going to move those out of the way for now because I don't need them right away. And as you can see from my bowl, right, I'm starting to proof up here a little bit. You can see it's starting to activate and do its little bit of a thing. And I'm just going to add about a half a teaspoon of salt. Salt works in two ways. It adds flavor to the bread, right? And it also slows down the yeast a little bit. So, now I'm going to add my flour. So everything's in there. I've got my sugar, my yeast, my water. Oh, I need a little bit of oil. So, and you can use just regular oil for this. And for that you need a tablespoon, a teaspoon. So let's go, a teaspoon of just regular old oil. Got that all done. Now I'm going to add my flour. And that's 1 cup. So a half a cup of water, or 4 ounces of water, to 1 cup of flour. And I'm just going to start mixing this in until it starts to come together and form a ball. Now it's a little humid in the kitchen today, so the flour may need a little bit more than just what I've got here, but that's okay. So once it comes together, right, which shouldn't take long, and this is going to give me 4 fairly good sized cinnamon buns. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to put a little bit of flour down on my table. I'm going to turn my dough out, and I can tell right now it's really sticky. Okay. So I'm going to add a little bit of flour at a time. Now here's the key to this, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to be adding more flour than is needed. So start to knead it, and as it sticks, add a little bit of flour. Right? But do not go so it's so rock hard. The dough needs to be nice and soft. Right? So I'm just going to work the flour I've got on the table in, and as it sticks, which it's doing right now, I'm just going to add a little bit of flour at a time. And I don't want to bang the flour. I'd rather you take it a little bit at a time and take a little bit more time doing this, right, than just throwing the flour to it. As you add the flour, now remember to knead. You push down with your palm, you fold it, you turn it. Push down with your palm, fold, turn. And my dough is really sticky today, but that's okay, it's humid. And we're just going to add a little bit of flour as it's needed, until it forms a nice smooth ball. And you need to work that flour out. You need to get it going, and you need to get the carbon dioxide working inside, right? Remember, not carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. And that's just the gas and the yeast and everything working together, and it's just going to work it until it's all done. So nice smooth ball. It shouldn't be too sticky. It shouldn't be sticky at all. Well, a little stick doesn't hurt it, especially for what we're going to do. If you want to double this recipe, I am gonna post the recipe online. So if you want to double the recipe, just do that, but you want to use 2 hands to knead it, especially if you don't have a dough hook on your mixer. I don't even have a mixer, so I don't have a dough hook on it. Okay. Now, do not stretch the dough. Do not tear the dough. Right? Push it down, flatten it out. That's the best way to do this. Then you just keep going until it's all ready. Always make sure it's moving on your table. Add a little bit of flour as needed, but please don't go crazy with this. The softer the dough, the better the dough. And we're just going to keep working it. Now we're going to bench rest this in about another 4 minutes or so when I'm done kneading it. We're going to bench rest it for at least 20 minutes. And as long as it's nice and warm, that means your yeast is working and everything's doing its job. Okay. Push down, fold, turn. Push down, fold, turn. So do not be afraid to put a little muscle in this. I mean, you can overwork it, but I'm not afraid of that with you guys. But you need to make sure it's well kneaded and not really sticky, because it won't work again if it's sticky, sticky, sticky. Now the humidity in the kitchen is probably going to help the dough rise a little bit, because that's what you want. You want to put it in a warm spot with lots of humidity when it's done. So we're going to hopefully work on the humidity in the kitchen to help us today. As much as it's kind of hindering the dough making, it's going to help with the rising. Nice soft dough. This is perfect. Well, okay, maybe not perfect. Oh yeah, it's perfect. Okay, so now I'm pretty much done here. I'm going to throw a little bit of flour down because I don't want it sticking to my table. And I want to make sure there's no butt cracks in here. Okay, so I'm just going to round it up, get the bottom all worked in. Okay, there we go. So now I've got a little bit of flour down. You can oil this if you want, and especially if you're going to leave it in a bowl, put a little bit of oil on it. But for now, I'm just going to leave it on my board because it's a wood board and that's what it's for. And I'm going to cover it with a nice clean towel. Okay, so I'm going to bench rest it for at least 20 minutes. So I'll be back in about 20 minutes, folks. Okay guys, so here's my dough. As you can see, it's risen not quite a bit, but it's risen enough. Now, if I have time, which I do today, I'm going to let it bench rest again. So I'm just going to give it a quick punch down, get that excess air out of it. Right, then I'm just going to knead it back up again. A little bit of flour down, round it back up, get all those butt cracks out. And I'm going to let it rest again for at least another 15 minutes, probably 20. Let all that gluten relax and do its job. What's happening now is the gluten stretches, that'll make that's the difference between breads, quick breads and regular bread, because of the gluten, the high gluten content in here. It allows it to stick together, and that forms the big ball. Okay guys, so now we're ready to roll out the dough. It's rested twice now. It's got a really nice light air to it, and look at that, that's a perfect little dough, right? Nice and smooth, it's risen quite well. I'm gonna add a little bit of flour to the bottom. Now remember, when you're working your dough, don't beat it up. Just let it rest. I mean, it's food, folks. And you just spent the time resting it, so don't beat it up too much. Don't manhandle it now or it won't roll out, okay? So now we're going to basically pound it down just a little bit. And I want to get it to the length and the width of the inside of the rolling pin. Now, I think that's about 8 inches, but I don't know. You can decide, some rolling pins are bigger than others, but that's about what you're going for. We're going for 4 nice size cinnamon rolls. So here we go. And remember, we're working, this is the difference between and why it's taken so long. We're working with yeast bread product, which needs more time than like a quick bread. And you can't get the elasticity you do with a quick bread that you do with the yeast bread. So here we go. Up, back, turn, right? Remember, in the middle, up, in the middle, back. You're not rolling concrete. Don't roll over the edges. Okay? So just up, back, turn, up, back, turn, up, back, turn. You can manhandle a little bit, get it pulled out a little bit, and then just use this as a guideline. Okay? A couple times. Up, back, turn. Up, back, turn. Don't go this way, don't turn it, it's just up and back. Keep an eye on it. We're almost in the middle on the right length. We're just about there, ladies and gentlemen. Whoops, that's okay. Now here, you just want to stretch out the corners a little bit and make sure that you've got it as square as you possibly can. Okay, so there you can see that we're almost just about the width, and we're definitely the length, and I just want to stretch it out a little bit on the corners. All right, now I'm going to take a little bit of water wash. Now you can use butter, you can use egg wash, you can use whatever. Water wash works just as well. It's just to help hold the cinnamon and the sugar down. Now, you don't want it sopping wet, but you want it damp. Okay, so I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Now, I packed it in. Now, brown sugar, you can't leave it out too long, right? And you just want to make sure that you stretch it out to the very edges. Now, here's the beauty of working from home, right? I want a little bit more brown sugar, so I'm going to take it. And I just want to make sure it's all stretched out. Don't want to waste any of that brown sugar. Now, if you wanted to, you could put raisins in here or walnuts or anything like that. I have one daughter who doesn't like raisins, so she's not getting it. And now we're going to do the cinnamon. Now, I've measured about 3/4 of a teaspoon. I'm probably not going to need that. I'm just going to mix it, just kind of measure it around with the brown sugar. Get it all around. Cinnamon's very expensive, folks, so if you're going to do this, please be very, very careful. This is raw cinnamon. There's no sugar or anything on it. Okay. Okay, so there we go. Starting from the top. Let's kind of square it up a little bit. Starting from the top and turning in. And just twirl it. Try not to stretch the dough out too much. As far as now, you just want to, okay. Okay, there we go. Cut it in half. It'd work better if I had a blade for it. Cut the half in half. Cut the other half in half. And get your pan ready. Now you don't have to do this, but I've parchment paper at the bottom of this. you don't have parchment paper, that's okay. And I'm going to put a little bit of sugar on the bottom. All right, just because I can. And let's face it, this is not a dietary thing. This is not going to... Okay, so I'm just going to put a little brown sugar on there. I'm going to take and I'm going to basically work out my dough. Now you can see, the swirl in there, okay? One there. One there. One there. And the last one goes right there. Now, we're not anywhere near ready for the oven yet. Okay, now I don't have a proofer box at home. Okay, so I've kind of, this is the first time I'm doing this, so it's experiment time at the Yerdon kitchen. But so I'm going to put them in my barbecue, and I'll show you how that's going to work in a minute. The temperature is about 150 degrees, maybe a little bit more. It's going to get a little hotter because I just turned it up a bit, but here's what I wanted to show you, okay? So what I've done is I put a bowl of stainless steel bowl of water in here about a half an hour ago, and I've got one burner on. The rest of this side is cold, right? So I'm just going to put my cinnamon buns here, and hopefully they're not going to bake, they're going to proof. And the steam inside here should do a really good job of helping them along. Otherwise, it's going to take at least 45 minutes. It might take 45 minutes anyway. I want these to almost double in size. Okay, folks? So we'll be back. What can I say? Experimental time at the Yerdon house. See how this works. You gotta try new things, folks. Okay, so there you can see, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things I probably should have done, they're going to be fine, but the water should have been a little hotter. It should have been boiling when I put it in there. And maybe I should have turned the barbecue down a little bit. But as you can see, they've grown up quite nice size. And I didn't turn any of the other burners on. So now we're going to go right into the oven. So right into the oven, middle rack. I'm going to say about another 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to check it because my oven's pretty hot. 350, 375, but really be careful with them. It's a baking thing, and bacon's a science, and I don't profess to be a scientist or a baker. I just like to have fun. So I'll be back in about 10 or 15 minutes with hopefully a finished product. Okay folks, so I got a few minutes left until my cinnamon buns are ready, but I thought I'd show you how to make just a very simple sugar icing. So what I've got is I've got a half a cup of icing sugar. I'm going to put in my bowl, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of milk. You can use water, you can use whatever, and I'm just going to mix that all up. And as you can see, it doesn't take very long for it to, well, that's going to be probably enough for my 4. To that I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of vanilla. And that'll add a little bit of color to it as well. I just want to make sure I get that all in there. Again, as much liquid as you, I wouldn't want it any thinner than this, but you could actually make it a little thicker if you wanted it. And there's other options you can do. You can do a cream cheese icing. You can do just regular icing, I guess. But this is really simple and basic, and it's kind of what goes on cinnamon buns anyway. It was just a simple icing, sugar, and milk, water, whatever. Okay, I'll be back. Okay folks, so here we are, we're ready to take them out of the oven. It's been about 10 minutes and they look incredible. They got a nice little brown color to them. They got that icing on the top. Now, if I was smart, I'd just flip them out like this. But I'm not that smart. A little bit of icing sugar on here. So ladies and gentlemen, one of the things about these ones is because they're so loosely packed in there, they lose a little bit of their shape. If you want them nice and tight, use a smaller pan, add more to it or whatever, and pack them together tightly. But you know what, for at home, for doing something really kind of cool and neat, a little warm today, but that's okay. Maybe this winter, or maybe you'll get a cold spring day and you'll want to do it. So this is Chef Yerdon, and remember, somebody loves you, it's just not me. I love what I do, folks. Right? Just remember, somebody loves you. 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 It's just not me.